Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by your usual hosts this week. We have Tom Mannering.
Hello.
We have Ben Porter.
Yo.
And we've got myself, Josh Hartley. I was nearly put off by Tom's username that he's plugged in for. I nearly called you Tommy Danger, Tom.
As well, you should.
Yeah. Tommy Danger, how has your week been?
Did you get your Luminous Realm Lords pre-ordered?
Good one, Ben.
How we laughed.
Very witty and topical. Yeah, no, it's been quiet hobby-wise. A couple of role-playing games here and there, and I got my delivery today of Marvel Champions: Galaxy's Most Wanted, which received its usual humorous takes from you guys when I told you about it.
I'm stopping posting the intervention GIF now because it's ran its course. But
it goes without saying as well, you know.
Yeah. Have you opened it up yet?
I'm waiting on my 40 quid worth of deck protectors arriving.
Good man. I respect that.
How are you, Ben? How's your week been? I'm gonna take this away from myself.
Yeah, I've been good. I've just been working away on some commissions. I have been I think it's mainly stuff for Josh I've been doing this week actually. I painted up the Forge World Character Series Typhon model. Mm-hmm. It's a cool model. Showing its age a little bit, but still a cool kit.
Yeah.
And I've also started working on some Blood Angels for Mr. Hartley.
Yes.
So I've got 10 intercessors. I'd just finished doing the transfers on them before I came on here actually, and I'm waiting on some bits and pieces to do the bases. Mm-hmm. I have several thousand tiny bricks on the way, and also I thought this was really neat. I found 28mm sandbags that you can actually soak and reshape so that they will like conform to the shape of whatever you sit them on.
Oh,
so
that's
if you
really
get them
cool.
like draped over a wall or something like that. So I'm looking. Sounds really sad, but I'm looking forward to playing with my sandbags.
Yeah.
So
we've all been there.
Here's a question, right? I don't know how much you paid for those sandbags. Would it be like viable to actually just use a bunch of them to create terrain pieces with?
I'll double check the price on them, but I imagine you could. Yeah. Same with the bricks. You could probably stack them together to make like a wall that's been shelled and broken up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's I'm basically what I use them for is because with these Blood Angels I want the bases to look like a city that's been shelled. So what you do is you put like your texture paint on the base, and then you just like push little bits of junk into the base. So like, you know, little bits of wire. I use little bits of cork bark to look like rubble or stones.
Yeah.
You shove a bunch of that in, and then you spray it, paint it, and then stick some pigment powder on it, and it looks pretty convincing.
The nice thing with that is you can use that technique to give those Space Hulk Terminators the Tom Cruise treatment to like make them look a lot taller than they actually are.
Yeah, it's true. That's pretty much been my week, but I think I'm probably going to take a bit of time over the next week or so to work on some competition pieces, because there's a few big online competitions coming up, and so far I've painted one leg on the Magma Droth I'm supposed to be entering. So
when's the deadline?
Oh, it's like May.
Okay.
So I've still got at least a month.
Well, I was going to say we say
one's
it's
the beginning
May.
of May and one's the end of May. So
yeah, but it's, I don't know, the year's flying in for me. I know that's something like people just say like every single year, but it's true. Shut up. So, yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to seeing the Blood Angels all done in their red glory. And Typhon as well. You were showing me on camera the other night, but he looks awesome. I'm going to use him because I don't play 30k. I'm going to use him as Typhus if I ever want to field a Typhus-led army for my Death Guard. So, because I prefer him to the plastic kit that they've got for Typhus. So
he's a bit busy, that guy, isn't he? There's a lot going on there.
A bit too much happening, yeah. So
I have my classic Typhus model, and I'm happy with him.
Oh yeah, he's great. Yeah. Do you have him in Have you got like the lead one? He reaches.
Let me double check. I can't actually remember what he's. No, he's resin.
Still cool.
Yeah, he is fine cast.
Fine crap.
And an oxymoron if ever there was one.
Yeah. Moving on from that hand grenade. I've been doing all right this week. I've been painting my Necrons. I've finished my Scorpec Destroyer Lord and the Canoptic Reanimator. So next up, I'm gonna get some of the Scarab Swarms done. My Codex Drukari and Warzone Caradron books arrived last weekend as well, so I've been having to read over those. The Drukari book is really cool, insanely complicated. I think from a design point of view, what they were going for was much like Harlequins, like a difficult to pilot but very strong army if you can get it, which I think is neat.
So I haven't had a chance to look at the book, obviously, but I was talking to Billy today, and apparently there's a bit of discussion in the 40k community already where they reckon that the Drukari are going to cause a bit of a shift in the meta again.
Yes.
And he was saying specifically it's negated the usefulness of some of the Primaris units that he's been working on, because he thinks that really you want to lean towards volume of shots rather than like one shot, one kill type builds.
Yeah, because basically what they're able to do is field like and like up until this book came out, most of the armies that were released for 9th edition, you were probably wanting to run like small squads, like typically 5, maybe 10 people at the tops. The big outlier to that being Necrons. This is a book where you want to run like multiple units of 20 witches. So yeah, definitely I can see Billy's point there. Like you are wanting to switch out what you're typically bringing if you're expecting to come up against Drukari, because you need volume of fire rather than strength of fire to deal with them. And they're probably undercosted a lot of their stuff, so they can just field a lot more threats than a Space Marine player can field as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't play like competitive 40k or anything like that, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the meta.
Well, I play Salamander, so I'll be fine.
Yeah, you just burn them all. I will quickly say my feelings on the Warzone Caradron book. It's pretty cool. It is not worth the £35 price tag though.
Ouch.
Yeah. It is cool because it gives you a proper narrative to like this war, this particular little war that's happening in the 40k universe, and it's a pretty detailed account as well. The rules are pretty light for like running a campaign. They're cool, don't get me wrong, but it literally amounts to like 3 or 4 pages of campaign rules. And then the rest are like supplementary information for different codices. It's a shame. Like I think if they charged like £25 less, I'd been going, yep, this is great. But I just feel like it's a bit overcosted.
That's fair.
every so often they seem to do that, Games Workshop, where they'll release a book that they hype up quite a bit that really doesn't add very much to the game at all.
Yeah.
Even if you are like a narrative player or whatever. Like for me, last year they released Wrath of the Everchosen for Age of Sigmar, and like it was one of those books, like unless you're a Chaos player, there's probably not any reason to get it.
Right.
Because even if you're like, you know, well into your fluff like me, nothing really happens in the story either. So it's like, whereas like people have been buying the Broken Realms books a lot of the time just to read the story because it's been so good. But I don't know why they do that. I don't know if maybe it's like, you know, the staff have had a campaign, so like let's bundle it into a book and sell it. I don't know why they do that, but
I mean, plot wise, this is like continuing the narrative, because I believe like this is where Typhus is in the 40k universe at the moment, and I believe Abaddon is going to arrive at some point. And when he arrives, places, planets blow up. So you know that might happen again. But yeah, it's a shame. It could have been really. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I don't think you get your money's worth with it. It's my 2 cents. So there we are. Right, shall we talk about some of the news that's been going on this week? Yeah. Yep. Shall we stick on Games Workshop stuff and talk about Curse City going up for pre-order this weekend? As you are indeed listening to this right now, dear listener.
Curse City, bitch. Curse City, bitch.
Yeah. Ben, you're getting your copy. Well, you're going to be getting your copy. I assume for this. You're really excited for this.
I am. Yeah, I'm all in on Curse City. Like as soon as they announced it, I was excited for it. And do you know what? I actually remembered the other day that a while back, when they were still releasing Blackstone Fortress, Josh, we were talking about how it would be cool if they go back to Age of Sigmar for the next Warhammer Quest, and we actually said it'd be really cool if they did something where they focused more on like the undead.
Yep.
Do you remember we talked about that?
It's prophetic. Yeah. And the monkey's paw closes one finger. Yeah, no, it look. I mean, we've talked about it on previous episodes. It looks fantastic. £125, which I think is pretty much bang on the money for what you're getting.
There's been a bit of upset of late though, because a lot of the I can't speak for the Games Workshop stores, but a lot of the independent stores have been told that they're getting an allocation of, I think usually it's 15, and some of the larger ones are getting 30.
Okay.
And as far as they know at the moment, they don't know when they're getting more.
Yeah. Just like a public service announcement on this one though, guys, like it will probably sell out online, and you will probably see it go up on eBay with scalpers for like an over the retail price value, maybe even significantly more. This isn't a limited run. This will be available again at some point in the near future. So don't spend more than the retail price for it, because you don't need to, and you'll be getting ripped off. Case in point, that Piety and Pain box set that sold out immediately, and as even like yesterday was being sold on eBay for £150, £160, is back in stock on Games Workshop's website now. So don't fall for it. I genuinely think they might be having some sort of production issues at Nottingham with having to adhere to social distancing in the factory.
Yeah, they can't knock things out as fast as they normally would. There'll be limitations on how much they can produce, I imagine.
Yeah.
But speaking of production issues, forgot to mention this before we came on the air. There's been a lot of disgruntled voices in the board game community of late, because there's been a bit of a fiasco in the Suez Canal in Egypt.
Oh, I forgot all about that. Yeah. Imagine being the captain of the the Evergreen.
Yeah, so unless you've been living under a rock, this giant freighter called the Evergreen has managed to get like lodged across the breadth of the Suez Canal, and the ship can't move. And I think it has moved now actually, but the ship, it was unable to move, and it blocked everything. And you know, I'd never heard of the Suez Canal, but apparently it is one of the major like freighting.
It's huge, yeah, because it means it's so that ships don't have to travel south and round the Horn of Africa to get to the Mediterranean. So it's a big deal if ships can't get through there, because obviously we import a lot from Asia. So it was a big, as funny as it was a big pain in the arse for people.
Well, and as you said, because a lot of goods are coming from Asia to us through the Suez Canal, it means that a lot of board game Kickstarters are experiencing delays.
There we are.
So it's like first world problems, like, you know, your really expensive luxury items being slightly delayed, but like, because there'll be stuff getting freighted there that's actually like important, you know.
Well, like vaccines, right? Because are we not importing some vaccines from India? Like, they could have been on one of those ships for all I know.
Vaccines, there'll be like engineering components and things like that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I recently learned something in regards to board games I didn't know was a thing until this week. Is that there are people that make forgeries of board games?
Oh yeah, it's massive. Yeah,
which I've never heard of until like I was on a board game group and someone was like, "Oh, I've purchased like a forged copy of like, I don't know, Wingspan or something like that." I can't remember what it was, and I was like, "Forged copy of a game?" And I actually looked it up at that point, and I was like, "Wow, I can't believe there are people out there making dodgy copies of board games."
It's a massive deal, because you think about it, a lot of the companies that are producing games that are popular at the moment are, in the grand scheme of things, pretty small. So the one that springs to mind for me right away is the company that make Root leather games. Whenever they do a production run of that game sells out almost immediately. So it's great for them, right? Because they've never got like a backlog of product. They've always got a good cash flow for what they're working on. But the flip side to it is it's absolutely ripe for counterfeiting, because there's a market for their counterfeit product. That there's people that are choking for a copy of Root, and and some of them will go.
Just imagine some guy like coming up to you in the pub and opening up, you know, his duster, and he just opens it and like Root and Wingspan just kind of fold out. And buy a board game, mate.
Please close your jacket. I think if I remember, wasn't Secret Hitler hit really bad with counterfeits?
Yeah, that was one of the worst. And I think the problem was that I think it's a weird one, because the guy that made it print to play, so he said to people, like, you know, you can print it and do, and I think he actually made it free on the print to play, but when they did the Kickstarter for it, they did, like, you know, some physical copies of it, and that was what happened. Was the counterfeiters used the print and play to counterfeit the game.
Yeah. So you got to be careful. Unfortunately, buy from your local game store for multiple reasons. You'll know it's a genuine copy because they're getting theirs from a legit supplier, and you'll be supporting a small business local to your area as well. So there we are.
Beautiful.
Before we move on to other news items and away from Games Workshop, do we want to talk about that new Sisters of Battle model that they released?
Spade hands.
Right, first, can we all agree that this is like the worst new model that we've seen this year?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like the a lot of the criticisms we have of this model are like general, this is bad sculpting, whereas like the Lumineth stuff it's personal, right? Like you can't argue that it's been sculpted badly.
Very personal for Tom.
It's just. I mean, am I wrong, Tom? It's a case of personal preference.
No,
right?
it was when you did say it's the worst model this year. I was kind of like, well, the Luminous still exist, but as much as I don't like their designs, the sculpts are good.
They're well executed, right?
And this is where I think you're needing to like make the distinction between like personal and general criticism, and we're now going to go into some personal and general criticism about this model.
Yeah. Her face looks like she's playing a game of Where's the Cactus.
So, so what's she called? What's the name of the model?
The dog lady? I can't remember.
Dogmata. She's called a Dogmata.
Dogmata, there we go. Yeah.
That's an unfortunate name.
Yeah.
So, she's got a horrible pose. She's got massive shovel hands.
Yes.
So that I don't mind that pose. That pose can work well. I've seen it work like on the Necron. That has a similar pose. It works well, but for that model, in the context of a sister battle, it doesn't work. It looks really flat, really boring, and a little bit awkward as well.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like when I first saw it, I had to do the double take because I was like, that you see the text saying New Miniature Monday, but my head's saying like that's a model from like 20 years ago.
I'll go further. It's worse than their old bad female sculpts.
Yeah,
I think.
But it was even like the way it was painted was bad because it's like when I go into the shop, they are coming back with a change type of thing.
When I saw it, I didn't see it on a Games Workshop page. I just saw it like posted in a random group, and I thought it was third party. I thought it was like the knockoff models you get. Where it's like Women of War or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's not bad for a third. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll give some a little hint of praise. It looks marginally better with the helmet option. Marginally.
It still has all the proportion and anatomy problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is worse than when they revealed that Ultramarine character back earlier in the year. He looked like
with the weird haircut.
He looked like Sloth from the Goonies.
Question: have they given the new Sisters of Battle model to a bad intern?
It's like Harry the intern or something. He's
None
just joined
of them
up
because genuinely, I really liked that model range. I liked that model range, but all the new stuff that they've revealed so far this year, the best has been that Palatine character that's in the Piety and Pain box, but she's not an incredible model.
Of the sisters, is that what you're saying?
Sorry, of the Sisters of Battle, yeah.
Because the best model that's been revealed this year so far, I think, is a toss-up between the Rat Prince and Be'lakor for me.
I mean, I'd have to think about it. I don't know off the top of my head, but just the Sisters of Battle, that Palatine was okay, and then everything else they've done the Baby Walker, they've done the Lehman Russ with a load of filigree sticked on it. And now this.
What I want to see is this Dogmata woman inside the baby carrier. Really, really mesh that shit together.
Literally.
Almost literally mesh that shit together.
Yeah. that is my golden demon entrant,
Oh, no.
The worst you've produced, and I'll paint it with contrast paints.
Yeah.
Tide marks everywhere.
Yeah. It's check it out, guys. It's pretty bad. But
check it out. It sucks.
If you think we're wrong, and by all means, I've actually seen people on social media saying, "Oh wow, that's a great sculpt." I'm like, let us know, okay? Let us know.
Did you send them a link to like Optical Express when you saw that? Like,
I should have.
You're entitled to your own opinion.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, this is it. I like if someone's enjoying it, I'm not gonna.
To bring a sense of balance, like they have been knocking it out of the park with their new sculpts of late, so it was a matter of time before they had another howler.
Well, I think that all the more reason why this seems really weird. Everything so far this year, like everything they've revealed has been great. Like, apart from all the Sisters of Battle stuff, and Tom hates the Lumineth Realm Lords. Should we move away from Games Workshop stuff now for a second? Yeah, and
for a second,
we've got. I mean, we may well come back to it. I don't know.
We don't structure these things.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't think any of our listeners are under the illusion that we have a plan going into these things now. So
we have tried to have plans before, but Josh tends to just sort of improv it a little bit and goes off the reservation.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh,
it's
goes off the reservation.
It makes it feel authentic. Okay, we've got some news from Paizo, the publishers of Starfinder and Pathfinder 2.0. I don't know, why did I call it Pathfinder 2.0? It's Pathfinder.
You missed a beast of a
edition,
segue, because you could have gone from, we've just mentioned the Lumineth, which Tom loves, now onto Pathfinder 2.0.
Which Tom also loves.
So, Paizo have announced their convention for 2021. They've announced PaizoCon Online. For obvious reasons, it's not going to be run in person, which it normally would be, but given the current climate, it's not appropriate. So they're doing PaizoCon Online. They're also doing a PaizoCon Europe as well. It's a 4-day event. Loads of stuff going on.
Sorry, did I hear that right? Has Starfinder been out for 4 years?
If you include like the beta as well, because they did kind of a beta release. So yeah, it's probably about 4 years including that. Because I remember I did, when I was still a venture captain for Paizo, I did the release of Starfinder at PaizoCon UK, and I did like the demo games for it, which was actually a lot of fun. And I got to meet a lot of the writers and things. Some of them are really sound, some of them aren't. But that's a different story. But yeah.
I was going to ask. So you've spoke previously on the podcast about Pathfinder 2nd Edition and why you don't like that. Have you spoke about Starfinder and your feelings on that?
The ship combat, which is obviously going to be a big part of any kind of space opera that you play.
Yeah.
To some degree anyway, is slow and boring and just the worst.
Ship combat, and more like shit combat. Am I right, Tom?
Exactly.
Well, hey.
Exactly, Ben. Way. When it was released, there was a real imbalance in the classes. So in D&D, you've got classes like your barbarian, your fighter, your wizard, all that jazz. Yeah. Starfinder, they have sort of their own spin on those for the setting, and one of them was called the operative, which is kind of the equivalent of a rogue. And if you weren't playing an operative, you were garbage. You didn't stack up comparatively. And the ship combat, the worst thing about the ship combat rate is the pilot has a great time. Whoever's playing the pilot is having a ball. Everyone else is just sitting watching another player have a great time for what usually equates to at least an hour, if not more.
Yeah.
The pilot's just sitting there beating off while everyone's having a miserable time.
The problem with ship combat in these RPGs is it becomes very mechanical, and it sort of breaks down a lot into almost like a war game or like Battlefleet Gothic rather than a role-playing game. And I mean, you see that in like the 40k system. It's in Starfinder, even to a degree. It's in Star Wars, although you can kind of map around it a little bit. But I've just never really seen it done particularly well. Vehicle combat in general just seems to be problematic.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even done that much of it in Star Wars. We've had a couple of ship combat segments, but we haven't dived too much into it, and I was wondering whether you were avoiding it deliberately or.
I'm not avoiding it. I mean, we're playing pre-written stuff, and it just so happens that there's not a lot of ship combat in it, or you've done things to kind of avoid it yourselves. I know the rules to it. I certainly haven't pushed for it, I would say, but it's one of those things that, like, I think it's much more exciting to watch ship combat or play ship combat on like a computer game than it is to talk about ship combat, because you're ultimately talking about cubes moving around, which are fairly static, things you can't really describe. I mean, you can describe like loop-de-loops and funky maneuvers maybe, but you're gonna quickly run out of things to say.
Yeah,
quite the same flexibility as a body.
It's maybe for the best that it's kept to a minimum.
Actually there is one I have planned that does have a lot of ship combat in it. But,
okay.
We'll see if that comes up.
I think the risk of sounding a little bit pretentious, that I think how engaged players are and stuff like that in RPGs really amounts to how much tension the game's able to create, right? Because if you don't feel tension in something like that, then you don't feel engaged anymore.
Yeah, and I don't think that's pretentious. I think you're spot on, mate. I think ship combat can quite often leave some people sitting out, or people that aren't interested in it. If you've built a super talky guy, ship combat's not going to hold much interest for you. Even normal combat might not hold as much interest for you, ground combat. And if you've got a ship that only has like one or two guns, you've got a limited number of people who are going to be shooting those guns, limited number of people can pilot. So yeah, I think you're right. It's difficult to engage and keep the whole table excited.
Well, we'll let you know. I'll let everyone know my feelings on it once we have that session, if and when we come to it. We do have one more bit of news to cover, and that is Modiphius have opened pre-orders for their upcoming Fallout RPG. So you can go over to the website and register your pre-order with them now. What are our feelings on this project?
I like the Fallout universe, but I don't know if I want to play an RPG set in the Fallout universe. I mean, I'll reserve judgment until we're able to actually look at the thing, of course, but I think, like we said before we started recording, that there's a definite trend within tabletop at the moment towards licensed product, in particular licensed product from games that had from universes that had hitherto been specific to video games. Like we've seen a lot of the Bethesda IPs appearing on the tabletop. You've had a lot of the From Software games as well, with like Bloodborne and Dark Souls. And where I'm not saying that a licensed product based on a video game IP is always going to be bad.
No.
A lot of them are.
Yes. I mean, so I understand the business reasons for doing licensed games, but basically they all amount to laziness, right? You've got a market already there because you'll have fans of that video game or that license in general. You don't have to put in work to building a world. You've got art assets that you can already use. Sometimes, if your game has miniatures, you might have 3D assets that you can actually just print and not even have to pay someone to sculpt new miniatures for you. So I get it. it's for the same reasons why Hollywood does like remakes and sequels constantly. You know, it's because it's less effort and potentially more rewarding. It does not make
relatively easy money, right?
Yeah, but yeah, I completely agree. Though it does not necessarily. It leads to poor products because, you know, if you're going to be lazy in that stuff, well, let's just be lazy with actually making the game itself as well,
and
right?
I think that's it, right? Is that a lot of these things, they lean so heavily upon the IP that design often becomes an afterthought. I think that is the common denominator there.
Mm-hmm. I will say Modiphius are not too bad at handling IPs. I mean,
no, and we played a little bit of Wasteland Warfare, and it was a decent skirmish game, but I think the problem it had was that it released around the time that Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team did.
Yeah.
So what happened was a lot of people were like, you know, well, I've only got room in my life for one sci-fi skirmish game, and so it got eclipsed by that. I've not had a chance to play the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, but I think that potentially has distinguished itself from other skirmish games by having a strong like co-op element, and they've got the delves, things like that. So the good thing, and that's a good example of how Modiphius do approach their licensed product differently, because they're not just thinking like, yeah, well done boys, we've done another one in the bag, like Steamforged do. But they actually do take lessons from previous enterprises. And I think the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms is a good example of that, where they've gone, well, we can't just do another skirmish game. We need to be a skirmish game with something else that makes it stand out, because there's so many fantasy and sci-fi skirmish games at the moment. I think they were mindful of the fact that they were bringing the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms into a market where they were going to be competing directly with Warcry, which is a really strong skirmish game.
And of course, like before they were even doing any sort of miniatures games, Modiphius are known for their RPGs as well. So they do have a long pedigree of writing RPGs. So I don't know. I don't expect it will be terrible. I'll be lying if I said like I'm really keen to play it. I think the thing is, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, because I haven't really played any of the Fallout games. Is it one of these RPGs where you build a party? I think you get companions in it, right? But it's not like Final Fantasy where you'll have a party of characters that you're playing.
Sure, it's more like you the player character are like one dude or dudette, and you wander about the universe, and you can have one like animal / robot companion, or you can have one human companion at a time. And those companions can go back to their own little bases, or you can send them to a base of your own. So you do still have this group that you're interacting with, but you're right in that it's not like Final Fantasy where you're, there's like a troop of you going around.
So you can see where I'm going with this, right? Like most like pen and paper RPGs, there is normally like a party. You know, and that's not something that we typically see in the Fallout universe. But
I suppose the other thing is that the player character in the Fallout universe is very, very powerful. So you're probably not going to be as powerful as the Lone Wanderer. You're probably going to be more like one of those companion characters, because I don't know what character creation is going to be like, but you're probably going to. I'd be surprised if the game didn't encourage players to lean into specific roles a little bit more.
Yeah.
They did the Star Trek RPG, which is very well regarded. They did the John Carter of Mars one, which I reviewed for ourselves a few years back, and they are quite good. I think my big concern is not so much Modiphius doing an RPG, It's more the scope of what they can do with the license. And Fallout doesn't have, like, you play in the games. You usually play a human because it's set in a real world analog. You could maybe have like a ghoul or like a robot.
Yeah, I think it's got the potential to be really interesting, certainly. And then, like you say, I'm feeling a lot more positive about it because it is Modiphius that are handling it, and they do have a good track record. But I think to be honest, the reservations I have with it are not so much to do with mechanics. I think you know, like the example you've given, Tom, of like everyone starting off like a pleb and working their way up. That sounds like a really cool gaming experience to me. Like all of these people that are forced to like band together, like the Walking Dead style, and eventually become badasses. Like that to me is the right way to do a Fallout RPG, right? Group of survivors.
Yeah.
But I think the problems that I have are probably more to do with the actual role playing, because the Fallout universe itself it swings between being quite dark and being at times quite goofy, and I mean we've all met players who struggle to strike a balance between the two, right? Where it's just like one attempt at hilarity after another, which is, you know, it's just grating, you know.
I will say, like, one big issue I found with these kinds of games, trying to run them in my own group, not everyone's going to be interested. Like, it's quite a niche, because not only are you saying, right, we're doing a post-apocalyptic game, but you're then sort of shrinking that appeal by saying it's Fallout. So, you know, it follows the convention of Fallout. So by definition, you're looking for people who probably have a knowledge of that setting, you know, an experience of that.
Do you not feel like that's a problem with RPGs in general, though?
Not necessarily, no. I think things like Dungeons and Dragons are fairly open form. You know,
I mean, there's dozens of different settings for Dungeons and Dragons for a start, right? Like all sorts of flavors of fantasy that you want to play. To put a bit of perspective on this, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. It took a couple of the guys that we play our Star Wars campaign in to kind of warm to Star Wars, and Star Wars is an IP that is. I'd struggle to find think of an IP that has a broader appeal than Star Wars. So, you know,
but this is what I guess this is what I'm driving at. It's like I maybe should have put in the addendum of, with the exception of Dungeons and Dragons. Do you not think that that's a problem with role playing games?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is right that is the like settings and IPs are polarizing. They just are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head of other games that I've tried that. I mean, obviously Pathfinder is quite similar to Dungeons and Dragons in that respect, but Pathfinder, let's face it, started as a copy of Dungeons and Dragons, so.
No, it is. It entirely is. It's not even apologetic for it.
Yeah. Call of Cthulhu has a couple of different settings and modes, but they all are horror-ish to one degree or another, and that can put people off.
Yeah, so. I find Call of Cthulhu is actually very polarizing.
Lovecraft in general is, though, right?
Yeah, like I've had people, even within our current gaming group, and I kind of say let's play Call of Cthulhu, and some people are like, yeah, let's do it. You know, some people are kind of like, okay, whatever. But then you get some people like, I'm not really interested in cosmic horror.
I'm bursting to play Call of Cthulhu. I've still not played it, and I am the self-professed biggest Lovecraft nerd in this group. Fight me.
Yeah. No, I don't want to. Don't make. Why are you making me? Like, yeah, I think Call of Cthulhu would be my favourite RPG. Not so much for the setting, although I do really like the various settings for it. I really like it mechanically. I think it just works like a treat. So,
I find, and Josh can probably attest to this, what I love about Call of Cthulhu is it's so dark, right? It's so grim. But you can have these fantastic moments of organic comedy. So they're not forced, you know, it's not someone, you know, playing the class clown for the table. it's just, you know, these really dark situations happen, but these kind of gallows humor come out of them, and it really kind of it works really well. And I mean, I've seen it in games with Josh.
In my defense, I'm not like my Call of Cthulhu character is not a comic relief character at all, which is something I do like to lean into a lot.
I don't believe you.
He's not. He's not.
Every character Josh makes is a comic relief character, whether he likes it or not.
I see what you're getting at. I understand now.
Your mere presence alone.
Yeah.
I think that's a very Lovecraft thing, though, right? You know,
yeah.
Like he really plays around with like there's a very fine line between comedy and tragedy, and to me, actually, that does feel very cosmic horror. Like just laughing at these horrible things happening to people. Like no one cares. You're suffering.
Yeah. No, it's quite appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Shall we? Listener, we've had horrendous technical issues recording this episode. I'm just going to say this: if I really hope we can salvage this, I'm sure we will.
It's entirely possible I've not been here for a good half of this episode due to some of the technical issues.
We'll find out. Hopefully, the good people at Squadcast are able to recover a lot of the recordings for us. Shout outs to Squadcast, who we've been using for ages now, actually, and are pretty reliable. So
we've been using Squadcast so long that we actually started using them before the CEO had, the director had quit his day job to do Squadcast full time. Yeah.
No, they are great though, and the odd time we've had technical difficulties. Yeah, cheers, Zach.
Fix my podcast, please.
Yeah. The odd time we have had technical difficulties with them, they've worked very hard to get them resolved. So really appreciate that. But hopefully you guys are listening to this and we're able to resolve them all. But given that it's been a long recording, should we draw that to a close?
Yeah, we really don't know how long this recording is, do we? It remains to be seen.
Could be anything from 10 minutes to, an hour and a half at this point.
Yeah. Right, guys. Well, thank you very much for listening, and until next time, take care.
Bye.